Okay, I'm going to show you how to replace an alternator on a 2006 F-150. This one is the Lariat version, has a 5.4 liter V8. I have already removed the old alternator, and I'm just showing you under the hood of what it looks like after the alternator has been removed. If you'll notice, these bolts, I put them back into the original hole because it was a day or so before I got the new alternator, so that you don't forget where all of these go. Now that's where the air intake box is located with the air filter. That comes off as a hole that's setting right here. You only have to remove 4 bolts, 5 bolts, which the 5th one is this one, and there's a couple of plugs. This one, those are removable by pulling this red tab out, and this vacuum line right here, and you remove it by pulling down on the green tab and then pulling it off at the same time. Pull down, pull off. All of the bolts that secure the alternator, I did not have to remove the radiator hose, the top radiator hose, to get to it. Simply had to remove this bolt, and then these two that hold the alternator.
What?
Okay, I just removed the serpentine belt. If you're changing out an alternator or something like that, especially with as many miles as this vehicle has on it, you would want to go ahead and change the serpentine belt. Probably needed it long before now, but it has lasted. Did not have to remove the tensioner to do this. Should be pretty easy to put back on. Okay, I've now got the new serpentine belt routed properly, and at this time I will begin to install the new alternator. Okay, I now have the new alternator sitting in place. If you look straight down, you'll see 2 bolts that are sticking out. I was able to just place that straight down onto those bolts, not thread them through a hole. One of the things that you have to be careful of is the plug that goes into the back. Make sure that they match when you buy your new one. Make sure that it's the same. You see the brown looking, this brown looking material, that's easy to fall off. You can just pull it out of there. That's weather packing. Make sure you maintain the integrity of that, and I will hook those wires up before I begin tightening down bolts. Okay, I have installed the new bolts. There was one here, just screwed it in, got it started well. Got this one, it goes actually into the alternator. This is the output terminal that goes back to the battery to charge it. That one, I just tightened it down, finger tight. Install the plug. It's kind of difficult to see back underneath this wire. This is a weather boot that once I tighten this bolt down, that I'll reinstall over top. And then you had these 2 bolts over here. Looks like there's been a dirt daubler trying to establish himself under here at some point. Don't know when that was. But now I'm ready to install the serpentine belt. and start tightening things up, and then I'll reinstall the air box. Now, serpentine belt's been rerouted and installed. Doesn't come without some damage. You're always going to knock the bark off of your hand or something of that nature, and you just have to finesse the belt back on the best you can if you don't have an installer. All that's left is to put in the tighten down all of the bolts that are reinstalled and double check them, and then reinstall the air box, and we'll be finished. Okay, as you can see, I have the intake air box reinstalled. This is where the air filter is contained at. All of the bolts have been checked and rechecked. There is a torque specification for these bolts. However, today, since don't have a torque wrench available, it's my elbow. All of the work that you just saw was performed with this one wrench. It's a 10 millimeter gear type wrench. Makes things very easy. And if you wonder what the vice grips are for, those are on the gas struts that hold the hood up, and they do weaken out. I'm just too cheap to replace them, so I have a couple of very small vice grips or lock and jaw pliers that I use to hold the hood up while I'm doing this. You would not want that thing to fall over and hit you in the head while you're doing this. Now for the ultimate test. Stand by. Okay, currently our battery is a little low. It's 11.87 volts. When I crank it up, I'm hoping to see a big difference, and I do believe it'll crank with this much voltage and start. If I don't, then misdiagnosis, and it's probably going to be something more in lines of the computer. Stand by. Okay, let's see what we have now. A good 14.25 volts, that is normal, so good diagnosis. This job is complete.